Hi guys. I'm out in the woods. I was wanting to make this video for quite a long time. Um, and I don't know, keep forgetting and all that. When it's a sunny day, I'm usually taking the kids out to the beach or something like that. And I forget that I wanted to make this video. So here I am in the deep woods. Well, I guess kind of deep woods. My car's over there about 30 or 40 feet. And you can, maybe every once in a while you'll hear a car passing by, as one is about to. So it's a beautiful day. It's 29 degrees, 30 degrees. It rained last night. The ground is wet here. It's moist. It's moisty. And this particular spot I chose is like 2 or 3, 4 or 5 minutes from my house. And I couldn't help but thinking as I came out here, okay, I'm on the verge of finishing the book, the final edit. I've got 58 pages left to edit, and I'm going to try to get that done either today completely, which is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of reading and a lot of stuff, or probably more likely tomorrow. So it depends how much time I spend editing this video, I suppose. But you can't just sit at a computer and type and be productive and attentive, for whatever, 8 hours at a time. So anyway, videos are a nice break. So as I say, I couldn't help but, even on a short drive over here, thinking about how much my time here in this area has influenced the book. And I grew up in Nova Scotia. I grew up in a suburban area, in suburban Halifax, the Dartmouth side of the harbor. And we went out to the country every now and then. Mostly, when we left the city, we went out to the beach, to the ocean. But we did go to there's a number of beautiful walking trails in the area that we would go to sometimes growing up. But this area is remarkably different from where I grew up. So we're in the Algonquin area of Ontario. So it depends who you ask, whether this is Southern Ontario or Northern Ontario. I think generally it's classified as Eastern Ontario. So we're on the Ottawa side of the province, and we're below, say, I don't know, Timmins, or those big northerly cities that are the true north. So, but nevertheless, this area, as I've indicated before, was settled about 150 years ago, for the most part, by loggers. My wife and I went the other day. We went to Renfrew and Eganville. They're both towns along the Bon Jour River, and the Bon Jour is one of the tributaries of the Ottawa River, and the Ottawa River is one of the tributaries of the St. Lawrence River. So that's why this place was founded. Initially, the first wood that came out of this area went down the Bon Jour River, or the Madawaska River, which is closer to me. And they would travel down and make it to the Ottawa River, and they would bypass Ottawa, believe it or not, because Ottawa didn't exist when this area was settled first. It was a little settlement called Bytown. And most of the wood here originally, and we're talking about almost just right after the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, when Canada changed from a French possession to a British possession. So the wood would end up at Quebec City. That is several hundred miles away, and eventually the wood would make it down the Bon Jour and the Madawaska to the Ottawa River and stop at Ottawa. And it was at that time, when Ottawa was starting to become an important little town, that Queen Victoria said, yeah, let's make that the capital of the country. It's further away. For those who don't know, Ottawa is further away from the United States than Toronto, and York, Toronto, Kingston, those things are right on Lake Ontario, and easier for American invasion, which was the chief concern back in those days in the fallout after the American Revolution and so on. That was a primary concern. So if you move up a couple hundred kilometers from the from the Great Lakes, go up north to the St. Lawrence, where closer to Quebec and so on, and that would mean that any invading army couldn't just come by boat, say from New York or Boston up through the Great Lakes and so on. They would have to also travel a couple hundred kilometers inland. So that's why the capital moved there. Anyway, so here we are, settled in what we call the Opiongo Way. So this was a loggers trail, and it still is very much an economy. Sorry, the sun is getting through now. I'm gonna have to change my camera's location here. It was very much a loggers economy, and still is. Logging is one of the larger industries in the area, and now added to that, of course, we have tourism. So we've got many lakes and rivers, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So it's a tourist area now, also, and that's probably half the economy here, and everything really opens up and gets busy in the summer. Lots of people from Toronto have cottages up in this area. Lots of people from Ottawa as well. It's a beautiful area. So our little town is really busy right now with lots of touristos, and they're spending their money, so that keeps us all going for the rest of the desolate winter. And in the desolate winter, we also get tourism through skidoo clubs and stuff like that. So anyway, I didn't come here because I like fishing, hunting, skidooing, or anything like that, or logging. I came here to teach at a local college, and my position was ended a couple years ago, and here we are still. It's an easy place to move into because the property is cheap, but it's very hard to get out of because, you know, if you can afford a house here, it doesn't mean you can afford a house anywhere else. So here we are. I love it here, though. Would I like to move away from here eventually? Well, I don't want to move away from here, but I would like, I think, ultimately to go back to Nova Scotia or PEI, where my wife is from. So you're probably wondering about this little wristy thing here. This is carpal tunnel syndrome. This is what happens when you write too much, typey. It's nothing major. My wrist gets sore when I write a lot, so finishing up on the book means I'm writing a lot. Anyway, gosh, I haven't even started talking about the book yet, and I've already gone 8 minutes into this video. And the question is, well, stop now and start another video, or just keep going? Why don't I just keep going? So here I am in the woods. I love the woods, but as I was thinking of all the scenes in the book in Go Out From Us, which will be on sale very shortly on Amazon. Please pick up a copy. It'll help me out greatly. As I was driving out here, I was reflecting on all the different scenes in the book, and now they've all, as I reflect, they're all been triggered or centered around an actual place I've seen, and perhaps seen many times. For instance, the main character will end up at a house towards the end of the book, and I could pinpoint exactly where that is on a map, and most of the principal events of the novel take place in either a place that I've seen here in this area, or in a place like something that I've seen. So even the short drive out here, you pass by walking trails, which used to be the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks are now trails, activity trails, so snowmobiles in the winter, ATVs and walking and biking in the summer. I walked by, for instance, I drove by just a minute ago, a cultivated forest, growing pine trees, and one of the chapters takes place in a cultivated forest, not in this rough, diverse vegetation here. One of them specifically takes place in a cultivated forest, which is just stone's throw away from where I am right now. There's lakes, there's rivers, and these are all things I've seen in this area. This book couldn't have been written had I never moved out here. A different book would have to have been written. And in fact, I've been thinking for the last little while, like, what am I going to write after this book is finished? I've already started on some projects, and some things you just start writing them because you're like, well, I don't know, maybe this could go somewhere. So you write 2 pages, 3 pages, 10 pages, and then you're like, well, I don't know. It doesn't seem to have a future. But one of the things I've been thinking about is continuing on in this same zombie universe, but setting it in Nova Scotia, and associating it with my own childhood experience in that suburban setting. So that's one thing I've been thinking about, and it won't be directly connected with this novel. None of the characters will be carried over, but maybe the same universe or whatever. I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's the thing I've been saying about Canadian literature, why I love great Canadian novels, and why I love great American novels, is that I love books set in this geography, and that's why I love Russian novels as well, because of the giant reality of space and time that you get in Russia, which I've never been so far, or in Canada or the US. Mark Twain makes me want to visit the Mississippi. He makes me want to go to, down south in New Orleans and all up along the river. Wouldn't that be amazing? And different writers make me want to think about other places. This is a pretty awesome place, and judging by Hollywood, the woods are an evil place. And Hollywood's not completely wrong. The woods are dangerous. They're very dangerous to people who don't know what they're doing, of course. And I would say that I'm very much like the main character in the zombie novel, who has learned a lot about nature, has learned a lot about the outdoors, and that were I forced out into the woods, gosh, it would be really difficult. I know a little bit about gardening and planting and growing things, but for instance, I wouldn't know what mushrooms are safe here to eat. So my book is kind of halfway between the Hollywood horror of the woods, like the Blair Witch Project, or The Hills Have Eyes, or I'm trying to think of those teen ones, like I don't know, maybe I'll list them on the video here later, that I'm kind of thinking about, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, stuff like that. The woods are a lot safer than cities, in a way. Barely anyone ever gets murdered in the woods. Lots of people die. They die from exposure. They die from starvation. And those are realities. It's one thing to be in the woods in Canada in the summer, where your chief enemies would be mosquitoes and black flies. And the worst thing in the winter would be the cold, of course, and the threat of starvation. Very real threat. So the woods can be scary, but they're not scary for what's, as I try to make clear in the book, the woods aren't scary for what you bring, for what's in there, but for what you bring into it, and you bring yourself into it. How can you live with yourself, right? And I guess in a way, this book could have been written in many different ways. Isolation. Isolation is one of the themes. Dependence on others, fear of others, the evil that's in man, the opportunism of evil. Um, or the woods can be your best friend, and in and ultimately, the character is working through those things. How is the woods my friend? How is it my enemy? How are people my friends, and how are people my enemy? Um, the great French philosopher Sartre, is famous for having said that hell is other people. But I would say that hell is in yourself. Okay, it's not other people. It's people, and you are a person. So hell can be in yourself as much as it can be other people, or zombies, or bears, wolves, whatever, disease, viruses. In this day and age, not many people live in the rural setting. The people around here love it, and many of them can't conceive of moving to a city. I hated city as city. Growing up, I always wanted to live out in the country. And here I am now out in the country. And I do love it out here, but there are realities that are difficult. And that's one of the things that we found with the pandemic, is that you can be lonely just about anywhere, even in the city. And we've all been aware of that. Like, I remember when I was training for the priesthood, you're given a certain amount of hospital ministry exposure. And one of the things I quickly noticed was how lonely old people are. So in hospital settings, and often in old age homes, some are shut-ins. And that in the midst of a crowd, you can be lonely, right? And this can happen to any kind of person. I think that it can happen to young people. It can happen to people with mental illness. I think it plays a big role in all this sexual politics now, with the sort of gender stuff and this homosexuality and stuff. It's about acceptance. It's not in the framework in which it's presented, but it's about saying, I'm a good person, I'm a worthy person, love me, spend time with me. And, philosophers have said, you can't be okay with others unless you're okay with yourself first. And that's something that the main character of my book thinks about several times. And that's what kind of drives him to do some of the things he does, is that he wants to be okay with himself before he can be around other people, in that sense. So that's one of the big themes. Now, I think it's funny how the older you get, the more you realize that the choices you made were very strongly influenced by the type of person you are. And so the fact that I end up here in the woods says something about me. Maybe something I wasn't aware of, maybe something I didn't want to know. Here I am out in the woods. Well, I'm literally out in the woods by myself right now. But it's a funny symbolism, isn't it? And I think about it in terms of the subconscious, the Freudian subconscious and all that stuff. We make the world what we want it to be in a certain way, and we find places that make us comfortable because of some kind of interior thing. The woods are difficult. The woods are scary for many. The woods are challenging. But that's the negative side. The woods are also a gift. And it's funny how, to reflect, so much of human history has been spent in the woods. Now, history in the technical sense of, recording, of l'histoire, of writing, doesn't take place in the woods. Writing doesn't take place in the woods. Writing takes place out of the woods. It takes place in Mesopotamia, it takes place in Egypt, and it takes place in Athens and Israel. It doesn't take place in the woods. But human beings are formed in the woods, and our woodsiness and our woody origin is always dependent on the woods. It was formed there for hundreds of thousands of years. And that's what we see, for instance, when we think about the Aboriginals who walked this land here for thousands of years before I got here, before the first Polish and Scottish and Irish settlers got here. And they're no different from, for instance, my European forebears, the Celts and the Germans, who walked the forests of Bavaria and the forests in England and the forests of the Russian steppe. Well, it's not the steppe, but the Russian forest. So here we are. The forest calls us out. And if you've never been in the forest, go in the forest. It's electrifying. It's consoling. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's a happy place. It's a calm place. And it's the smells, it's the sights, it's the noise, but it's also the lack of noise. So anyway, wish me luck with the last little bit of editing. And, hopefully the book will be ready very soon. So thanks very much, guys, for listening once again. And if you want to see more of the woods, let me know. Okay, we'll see you later.